Hi, Olivia, and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. Today, we're going to dive on into your two birth stories and also your two losses and kind of your journey from, having your first baby pretty effortlessly in the sense of getting pregnant and then going on
Yeah,
this big journey, finding spirit babies and um, channeling and having this connection to spirits and ending up with your now second live baby as well. So
yeah.
take us back to becoming pregnant the first time and kind of, you know, who were you then? And like, what were you thinking about birth and everything compared to now? I'd love to know kind of that journey too, if you want to share that
Okay.
with us.
I guess it's probably got quite a long sort of backstory, so I won't go into it too much. But around that time, I was already on like a healing journey from some other things that I was struggling with, like burnout and things like that. So I had entered the natural health world, as you say, probably a couple of years before. So I knew that I wanted to have a more natural pregnancy and birth, and I'd already explored other kind of healing modalities as well. And actually, a family member had a home birth, and she was training as a hypnobirthing teacher. So she, as soon as she told me about, that's what she was doing, that's what she wants to do, I was like, yes, that's what I want. I want to have a home birth. And so she actually also guided me through my pregnancy as well. She was our hypnobirthing teacher. So yeah, we fell pregnant unexpectedly quickly, and interestingly, actually, I was just reflecting on this recently, and I remembered that I'd worked with a herbalist just before, and she gave me these herbs to balance my hormones. And I remember her saying, like, if you get pregnant, stop taking them straight away. And I sort of laughed, like, haha, that's not going to happen very quickly. And it did. So I probably only took the herbs, I don't know, for a few weeks or something. Um, and yeah, so I had a really beautiful pregnancy. I was a primary school teacher at the time, and yeah, it was lovely. Like the children just were so excited about me being pregnant, and yeah, just worked in such a wonderful place that it was just I felt quite like celebrated, I guess, and by my family and friends. Um, I found it tricky physically in some ways because again I had previously experienced a lot of like burnout and kind of feminine hormonal symptoms. So I did have quite a lot of um, care, I guess. Like I had like acupuncture and osteopath, chiropractor, um, and yeah, as I said, I'd already seen a herbalist before I got pregnant too. So I had my baby shower at I think I was 37 weeks, and I was just feeling so full. I was literally just like, I can't, I've got no more space for this baby. It's got to come soon. And everyone at my baby shower was like, yeah, I think, you're looking like, it's going to come soon. But you think, oh, 37 weeks is not, that I've still probably got time to go. But in my body, I just thought, I just can't grow this baby anymore. And so 2 days after my baby shower, I went into labor. And he was ready to come in and he was ready to come out very quickly. And that is our son. He's like, go, go, go. That's his energy. So yeah, so it was about 1 a.m. I woke up and I went to the loo actually, and then I came back into bed and it felt like I'd wet myself. So I was like,
Mm.
oh, what's that? That must be my waters. And it happened about 2 or 3 times, I think. Um, so yeah, I thought, oh, my waters have gone. And then I just started getting like gentle kind of period pain cramps. And just, yeah, I was just using lots of different techniques. I'd also really got into yoga as well. So I was using a lot of yoga techniques. And actually, I reflected on after, and I think I used more of my yoga than the hypnobirthing. I'd also, as well, on my kind of beginnings of my healing journey, really got into meditation. So all of those things were really helping me. Um, and yes, it was a long labor. It probably didn't really kick in until so that was 1 a.m. the following evening. And yeah, I would say it was around 7 p.m. ish that, yeah, probably went into active labor and it really started ramping up. Um, but yeah, I did have a really amazing labor at home, and yeah, I just remember having those really like blissful moments, and just feeling really calm. But it was almost, in some ways, perhaps I was too calm because it then just wasn't progressing. And I got in the birth pool really quite early, I think. And I apparently was in and out of it for 8 hours, which I don't remember, but my midwives were just getting me like in and out, in and out, walking up and down like a hallway, and then kind of doing squats and just trying to help things progress a bit. And I had asked for not to have any like coached pushing, but because things were so slow, they then said, look, I think we really would like to help you. So we did that, I think, for about 2 hours. And
So
again,
when you
nothing.
say this though, because I'm really curious, I want to find out, you
Yeah.
know. So you said maybe you started active labor around 7 p.m. Was
Yes.
that you thinking that, or did the midwives arrive and kind of share that they thought that? Or how do you?
No, that was just I don't remember them saying to
Yeah,
me, like, you're in such and such a labor.
yeah,
I guess that's also my kind of knowledge now of,
yeah,
what I've picked up on, and
hindsight.
yeah, and just feeling the real like intensity kind of
Yeah.
ramp up.
And what
Yeah.
about, so when did they arrive in your house?
So they, first of all, had one midwife come like the morning after. So it was about 10 a.m. after my
Mm-hmm.
what I thought my waters had broke,
Mm-hmm.
to check me. And she actually told me my waters hadn't broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can
Um,
get very juicy in the end, just like vaginal discharge. Also sign, maybe of labor getting closer because you just get so rich down there before labor and birth. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so she came in and then she left. And then we called her back. I want to say like 5, 6 p.m.
Yeah.
ish, when it started, just started feeling a lot more intense. So then
So at what
I must have
time
got in
did
the birth
they?
pool about
Yeah.
midnight,
Okay. Yeah.
because we were then transferred at 8 a.m. So it
Right.
was, so it was maybe just before midnight.
Yeah.
Um, and I just remember
So,
getting in the pool. It was so amazing, but it
yeah.
obviously slowed things down more.
Yeah, but I also like this is the thing. Is this NHS midwives?
Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm very curious to hear the rest of the story and really pick your brain around it because I'm wondering if it's just, they were there for 12 hours and then they thought, or not even 12 hours. What was that then? Maybe.
yeah. I
So if
think it
they
was just over
arrived.
because we transferred at
Yeah.
at 8 ish. Because I
Yeah.
was in hospital about an hour and a half, 2 hours before he was actually born, which was at
Yeah.
10:30.
So let's talk through that. Because labor and birth has no timeline, truly, right?
Yeah,
Truly. Then it does have a timeline if you're an NHS midwife and you work with the policies that some, people that aren't even on the floor have decided that
yeah,
midwives need to follow.
yeah,
So this is why I'm like, oh, let's unpack this one,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So you were laboring, you were calm, things were going quote unquote slow, but perfect, like they were progressing. And
yeah.
that's what I'm wondering. So around, did you ever get to the pushing stage of feeling the urge
I
to
didn't
push?
know, no, and
No.
that's where they were like, like my mom, because my mom was there too, and she was sort of
Yeah.
like, this doesn't seem right, and then they're all saying this doesn't seem right,
But
and I was saying I don't have any urge to
yeah.
push.
Did they check you at that time and say, oh, yeah, you're fully, the head is low?
I don't remember.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
don't remember them ever saying you're such and such like centimeters. They did check me, but I don't remember what they said,
Yeah.
like what language they
Yeah.
used.
Because this is curious, right? So there's something that is starting to be talked about that home birth midwives, especially midwives who don't have these policies saying to them, this is what normal labor should be. And
Mm,
that kind of cuts out a lot of the variations of normal. We're starting to now have research around what's called physiological plateaus, where, a woman can be in active labor and then it can be a lull of an hour, a few
mm,
hours. She can have sleep. She might have like one contraction every 15, every half an hour, even for an hour, and then it kicks back up. And then, she continues, and that these are physiological plateaus where a woman might just need a rest. She might just needs to sleep. And that labor is not linear, where it just goes ramp, 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 ramp up birth. That it
Yeah.
can be like intense, and then it just also has a plateau, and then it comes back, and then it can have a second plateau. And like that, you know, these are variations of normal that just the hospital does not still acknowledge as true, because then all of a sudden she's not progressing, something's pathologized, she's given six, oxytocin, she's, you know, being intervened with. And so this is why I was curious to like, why did they transfer you? So what was happening around 8 o'clock when they said, oh, you should transfer?
They just told me I wasn't progressing. Yeah, essentially. I do remember I asked for some time with everybody out of the room except my husband,
Hmm.
because I just wanted to see if we could do it.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I guess just nothing was happening. I did get really tired and I was dehydrated. That's what they said they were worried about. But I guess it's interesting now you say that, because it's like maybe my body actually just needed to rest, and they're walking me up and
Yes,
down the corridor and getting me to do
that's
squats and all this stuff. And no wonder I was
exactly.
feeling
They
tired.
should have just let you sleep for half an hour,
Yeah, yeah,
lying on your side, taking some contractions that were spaced out, and see what happened. But this is the thing, it's NHS midwives, and they don't really have that space. That's why there is a difference between going with an independent midwife who doesn't answer to any
mm,
institution and policy,
yeah,
that can truly actually work with the woman holistically, that knows about these things like physiological plateaus, that knows the magic of having a sleep, even
yeah,
if it's like you're 8 centimeters and then you need to have a nap. Like, then have a nap. Don't force
yeah,
that woman to do squats and walking stairs when she's exhausted and haven't slept for 24 hours. Like, let her have a nap. Then her body will recuperate and she'll have a baby, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So, yeah, this is what I kind of picked up from your story. And I just really wanted to talk about it because so many women have this happen. So, the biggest reason for home birth transfer is exhaustion.
yeah,
Mothers, maternal exhaustion. Sometimes it's from the mother herself going, okay, I'm done, I want an epidural. But sometimes it's from the midwives going, oh, she's not progressing. And they're pathologizing something it's not abnormal. It's not, it's just a variation of a normal labor.
yeah, yeah. And
Mm.
actually also something really interesting that we found out once I'd gone to hospital is these midwives were on a double shift. So they'd done a shift before me and they were just,
That's
yeah,
why. Well,
yeah,
this is the reason actually.
yeah,
Of
they were
course,
tired.
have you done double shifts? You work for 24 hours. Of course, you want
Yeah,
to go home and sleep and like
yeah.
hand over care. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because also that's why because we were wondering why there was two of them, because there was two of them. I know there's always two,
At the
around the birth,
birth.
but there was
Yeah.
two right from the beginning.
Oh.
And yeah, so we were like, why is there two? And then we found that out. They were supporting each other because they'd done double shift. So yeah, I think there was a lot. There's a lot going on in there.
Yeah. Poor overworked midwives in the system. Like, I feel for every midwife in the system. Like, I've been
Yeah,
there. It's hard work to be in such
yeah,
a unkind, unsupportive system, trying to care
yeah.
and serve women to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I think
So,
especially home birth midwives, because that, that most of them generally are home birth
yeah,
midwives because they're passionate about home birth.
for sure, for
So
sure.
yeah, yeah.
So, when you got in there, though, what happened?
To the hospital.
Mm.
So I was actually blue lighted to hospital, even though, yeah, so they said the baby was totally fine. His heart rate was perfect the whole way through. They weren't concerned about the baby at all. They said they were more concerned about me because I was so dehydrated and tired. So it was a very traumatic journey to the hospital, because the ambulance literally just flew there, and we were going over humps, and I was obviously fully, I was fully having really full on labor contractions. They were really intense in ambulance.
Oh.
And so that was probably one of the worst parts.
Mm.
And then, yeah, then I got there and it was so rushed. I was
Mm.
manhandled, not in the opposite of gentle, want to say.
Mm.
Um, so I felt like I'd gone from like this really lovely, cozy home and calm home environment to this just like really rushed. I screamed at them, because, and so did my mum actually. because they were just putting cannulas in, and they
Oh
were
my
like putting their hands up
God.
me to check the
Oh
baby, and it
my
was,
God.
yeah, it was really just chalk and cheese, like. And my midwives that I had at home were lovely, like they
Yeah.
you know, they weren't part of this scenario. It was the hospital
Mm.
doctor and hospital midwives. And then again, I found out that the doctor that came in and rushed and checked me went off shift. So it was almost like she had to do this before she went off shift.
To
And so
hand
just
over,
treated me
yeah.
really
It's
roughly.
horrible
Yeah.
just to be able to hand over to their colleagues and look like she knows shit. She has to have
Yeah.
all these parameters to be able to give to them for a handover.
Yeah.
It
But
has
I mean, I
nothing
was
to
thankful
do
that she then
with,
left, because the
yeah.
doctor that came in was so lovely.
Okay.
She was so different. She was so calm and really, yeah. And then the anaesthetist was also really lovely too. So
Mm.
it was just like I had this like chaos when I first got in there with these really rushed midwife and doctor, and then fortunately some more
Mm.
kind of
And it
compassionate
wasn't even an emergency.
staff
You were
came.
just going over for maternal exhaustion. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah. It
so
was
at
bizarre.
this point when you got this nice doctor, what happens
Yeah,
then?
so then they essentially prepped me for theatre, because they were
What?
worried they might have to do a C-section.
Why?
Yeah, I don't
Like your
know. All I
baby's
just remember is
fine. You're
them just,
just tired.
yeah,
What? That
yeah. So
sounds
they
crazy.
gave me a spinal block. So they took me into theatre and gave me a spinal block, and then said, "We'll try von Tuce, we'll try forceps, and if not, you'll have to have a C-section." So they tried von Tuce, he didn't come out. They gave me a episiotomy, and he came out with forceps. But I it was really tough, because they obviously had numbed me, and I'm a very, very sensitive person, a very sensitive body. So the medication literally numbed me up to my neck. So I couldn't feel anything. And
Mm.
they were asking me to push. And obviously I'm push. I don't know. I'm trying. And I had about 10 people around the bed, and they're going, "She's not trying. She's not even doing anything." And I was like, "I am, but I can't feel my body. You're telling me to push when there's a contraction and I can't feel anything." And I just remember lying there, like my legs up in stirrups, like I can see my legs, but I can't feel them. And you're asking me to push and I can't feel anything.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah, he did come out eventually, and they took him and did whatever they needed to do. And then I just remember them putting him on my chest, and I couldn't feel him. And it was just, yeah, it
Mm.
was really heartbreaking, actually, because I just wanted to be able to feel my baby. And obviously then I wanted to breastfeed him and everything, and that was really difficult. It did kind of wear its way down, and I
Yeah.
did manage to have a shower like a little bit after.
So, how did you feel about your birth after that?
I felt, I mean, to be honest, I was probably just in shock afterwards. Um, and yeah, I think just kind of numbed it all out. And yeah, it was also then, my husband wasn't allowed to stay in hospital with us. So I was left with our baby on my own overnight.
Was this because of
Um,
COVID or something?
no,
Oh,
no, no, this was nearly 9 years ago.
oh wow,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, it's just their policy, the hospital that I gave birth at, that husbands aren't allowed to stay, which actually I was really surprised when I heard about other people saying that their partners could stay in other hospitals. I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was
Yeah,
a
I feel
thing.
like nowadays
Yeah.
that's more the rule to stay, but I
Yeah,
guess
I'd be
maybe nine
interested to
years
know
ago,
actually if the same hospital that I gave birth at was, yeah, have now kind of changed it. But
hopefully.
yeah, I had an absolutely screaming baby the whole night,
Mm.
because he'd had such a traumatic experience in the
Mm.
end himself. He had really sore head, like a
Yeah.
really, really sore round mark on his head. He had bruises and cuts on his forehead. And our son is also very, very sensitive. So yeah, for him, it just would have been a very traumatic ordeal as well. And so they gave him
Mm.
Calpol, which was like, I really didn't want, but they were also like, he's in pain. He's probably got a headache. Because I was so like worried about his like gut bacteria and everything. Then I wanted to breastfeed him, and I was struggling to breastfeed him. I was struggling for him to latch.
Yeah, because he's also in
So
pain. So yeah, it's
yeah, yeah. But
yeah.
we did have quite a challenging breastfeeding journey after that,
Mhm.
because yeah, it was he struggled to latch up. We literally went to see every specialist, like, um, and it was actually, no, having said that, so it was me that was struggling more with discomfort, rather than him. Like he put on loads of weight. He
Mm,
was feeding really well, but I was just in a lot of discomfort myself.
mm,
Everyone kept telling me it's because his latch was poor.
mm.
So, but anyway, we fed for 3.5 years, so it didn't kind of put me off. But yeah, I just felt like there was so much to do with the
Yes,
birth that
yes,
impacted that.
absolutely.
So
Of
yeah,
course. Oh my
yeah,
God. I mean, forceps, it's such a brutal way to come out. And the
yeah,
vacuum. I mean, it's just
yeah.
these
And I was a
sensitive
forceps
little
baby too.
beings. Ah, interesting
So
with the
I
birth
just, yeah, so
imprints.
I just,
Yeah.
that's why, like, when they said to me at home and they said you have to be transferred, I was like, no, they could have used
Mm,
forceps. That's what I was like. I've had stuff going on in my neck, like
neck.
from
Yeah.
my own birth. And
Yes.
yeah, I just thought, oh, but it can be so common, can't it, that we mirror,
Mm,
like our first birth mirrors our own birth. So
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's why
yeah,
working with the birth imprint and
yeah,
maternal lineage and like a birthing kind of ancestry line, yeah,
yeah,
can be
yeah.
really, really impactful. So, wowzers. And then you went on to try to get pregnant again, or did you have a
Yes,
break
so
for
it
a
wasn't
while? Or
until about 3 years until I was like, okay, I'm feeling, like we could try again because yeah, it was an intense postpartum motherhood period,
mm,
and yeah, it was about three, and he was about 3.5 when we decided to start trying for another one, and I think obviously because it happened so quickly last time, that's what I was anticipating could happen again. Um, yeah, I think I was still breastfeeding, and I think I weaned him around that time so that it was kind of easier for us to conceive. Um, and also, I just needed my space. It wasn't just because of that. Yeah, so we started trying to conceive, and then 2 months. I think it was about 2 or 3 months anyway after. Um, I woke up from a dream and I was having a spiritual pregnancy. Now, I'd only really kind of reawakened, I would say, to spirit earlier that year. So this was 2018. Um, and I woke up from this dream and I thought, as you do, I Googled it and Googled what's a spiritual pregnancy. And then I think I must have just something came up around spirit babies. But in that moment, I just knew I was pregnant
mm,
and I knew it was a girl and I could just feel her right here. I just feel her energy. And I'd never had experienced anything like that. It's just, but I have a very strong knowing sense. Yeah, I just knew. So, and had obviously didn't do a pregnancy test or anything, but I said to my husband, I know I'm pregnant and it's a girl. And he was like, okay, just calm down. You haven't done a pregnancy test. And then it was probably like 2 or 3 days later, I started bleeding. And so I just was like, I just had a complete meltdown. Like, I don't understand. Like, why is this happening? Why am I bleeding? I really felt like I was pregnant. Um, and I was just absolutely devastated. And it was almost like I often say that one was almost felt harder than my second miscarriage, because I was just so confused. And I think I was also like, was I not pregnant? Had I made that all up? What was all this that I was experiencing? But then I knew like the bleeding that I had was so much longer, so much heavier, so much more painful than my normal my normal monthly bleed.
mm,
So I was like, no, I've had a very early miscarriage, a
mm.
chemical pregnancy, as they call it.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I know. I
What?
don't even know. I don't even know what that,
What
what that
is
term
that
is.
term?
I don't
Chemical
know.
pregnancy?
I know.
What?
It's
Or,
just so
yeah,
bizarre.
I was
But I
like
did go
biochemical.
to
I'm like, what? No,
yeah,
it's a horrible word. Like so many other things in maternity,
yeah,
a horrible
the
word for
labels, yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
So, yeah,
So I did go
I
and
like
see
the word just loss, or like
yes, yeah,
honoring
yeah,
as what it
absolutely.
is. It doesn't matter if it's 4 weeks or 4 months or you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like it's
yeah,
still a
yeah.
loss, and you
Yeah,
felt that,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I mean that's it though, isn't it? It's like this language is so dishonoring
Mm.
of our experience,
Yes.
and yeah. Anyway, this is something I'm very passionate about as well, about honoring our experiences. Um, so yeah, so I did actually go and see a GP, which is very unlike me, but I think because the bleeding was so heavy, and I just wanted to kind of talk to them about just saying that, we're just trying to conceive and whether it would be helpful to me have blood tests and things like that. Anyway, I didn't. I think he just said, "Oh, you haven't been trying to conceive that long, so just wait a bit longer before you kind of investigate," I guess is what he was saying. So yeah, I didn't actually feel ready to carry on trying for a couple of months after that. I just needed a bit of space. So after that time we did, and then so the following year, it was in the August, so this was August 2019, I did get pregnant again. And during that time, I did start exploring spirit babies a bit more. I found a podcast and I found some groups online, and I was just kind of really exploring that world, I guess, and connecting with her a lot in spirit. And so I got pregnant again in August, and had a really, really challenging first trimester. I just felt physically awful. And really mentally, I really struggled with my mental health. I felt very, very anxious and depressed. And I got to about 11 weeks and started to feel so much better. And I thought, oh, I've gone past the first trimester symptoms. I don't feel tired, I don't feel sick and all this stuff. And then a day before my 12-week scan, I started bleeding. And I just thought, oh no. And it was very light to begin with. And I just knew that I was having another miscarriage, even though, bless, my friends and family were all trying to sort of comfort me and say, oh, it might not be. And you kind of just wait and see. And it just got heavier and heavier and heavier throughout the day. I just remember really just sitting on my sofa on my own, just essentially just bleeding and just getting heavier and heavier and not really knowing kind of what to do with myself. And so later that evening, it got really heavy. I was wearing maternity pads and they were filling up. And I was avoiding as much as I could going into hospital because I didn't want to, but I started getting a little bit worried that how much blood I was losing. So I called triage, and they did say, I was sort of saying how much is too much. And they said, well, if you're filling this pad in like such and such a time, that is a lot of blood to be losing. So I'd advise you to go to A&E. So I did say to my husband, I think we'll go in and just, get checked. And it was almost like the last thing I wanted to do. And I just thought, how am I going to sit in A&E and wait for hours sitting here having a miscarriage? But actually was a really quite magical experience, because when we were driving there, I saw just lots of really significant signs from spirit, and I just felt this like holding. And when we got in, they took me straight into triage. They took me straight into a private room. I didn't have to wait at all. The nurse that looked after me had 5 miscarriages herself, so she was really compassionate. The bed number I was on was like a really significant number to me. And I did just feel calm, actually. And she was like, are you okay? Like, you seem really calm. And I said, well, yeah, I did feel a bit anxious because I struggled a bit with claustrophobia. I have done for a while, and I felt this, like, I didn't want her to close the door. I said, I'd like to close the door because I want to give you your privacy. And so it's like, it's this really kind of mix, like feeling a bit anxious from that side of things, like feeling a bit trapped in a way, but feeling this real sense of calm with what was happening, and just this sense of like knowing this was all happening for a reason in a sort of spiritual perspective. I just didn't know what that was. And obviously I'd been communicating like with our daughter too, so I just felt her energy around me. So we were there, I don't know, maybe for a few hours, and what they were wanting me to do was just, I think, see if there were any tissue and if the baby was coming out. So they were kind of asking me they were just checking what was, what the loss was. And actually there wasn't any sign of a fetus. So I do actually wonder if I passed it at home, because I remember quite a big passing coming when I was on the toilet. But they also said that they think perhaps that the baby had died around 6 weeks, and it just was, I was losing it a bit later on. So, because they definitely said there's nothing the size of what a 12-week-old baby would look like. So
Yeah.
yeah, so and they were really wonderful, like with our son, like they took him round the, because he had to come with us, but they took him round, like showed him x-ray and stuff. So it just felt like almost like I almost felt like my daughter was kind of gifting us this like opposite hospital experience to what I'd had from my birth,
Mm.
like this really kind of nurturing, yeah, and especially like with the nurse that looked after me and stuff. So it just felt that was a big part of my healing journey. So
Mm.
and yeah, then so we came home, and then I went in, I think it was 2 days later, they wanted to do an internal scan, which was really awful. I almost wish that I hadn't had that. Not that they were, that they did it, in their best way that they could, but it's just not a nice thing to, especially when it's like uncomfortable, because I wasn't actually expecting it to be an internal scan when they said come in for a scan. So it wasn't
Mm.
until I got into the room and I was like, oh, this is not yeah, what I would want to be having. But yeah, obviously, and then they said that there was just this tiny bit of hope, tiny hope that like kind of I'd got it wrong and that the baby was still in there. And
Yeah.
but yeah, obviously they said there's nothing there, we can't see anything. So
Mm.
yeah, so we went home, and yeah, I guess kind of I've begun my grieving process, but I've been on a very, very deep healing journey for the last 3 years, and I've grieved so much more than I did. I just, so I grieved in a way that I could at the time, but
Mm.
not as much as I sort of needed to, I guess.
Mm.
Um, and then, so where are we? So that was October 2019, and actually it was on I'm trying to think what it's called, the infant loss. We have an infant loss week and a day. It was literally like on that day that I had my miscarriage, which was just also really very synchronistic.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then we waited a little while before we started trying. I think like a month or something, a couple of months. And I also bought I say the Spirit Babies book because it's the one that's kind of most well known, and it's really, really fantastic. Um, and I bought that book, and I read it literally within about 2 days. And I did my first really kind of intense kind of guided meditation to connect with our daughter's soul. And it was just the most magical, amazing experience I've ever had. She just like came straight in and was, yeah, just giving me all these messages. And then the beginning of 2020, I just wanted a little bit more support. So I reached out to a lady who I'd connected with in the Spirit Babies Facebook group that I'd joined, and worked with her. And she is a Spirit Baby communicator and energy healer. And we had a few sessions together, and she communicated even more like with my daughter. And also we did some other kind of energy healing, and also we did some work on my own birth, and also my son's birth.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then so in February 2020 we conceived again, and I had my full-term pregnancy. She stayed, and yeah, she told the Spirit Baby communicator that my daughter's soul had been in and out of my womb for a long, long time.
Mm.
But my energy wasn't aligned with her energy. That my
Mm.
so she was waiting for her, yeah, just for it to feel more aligned for her soul to come in. Um, so yeah, so I got pregnant just before COVID. um, and it was actually a really tough pregnancy because for the first trimester I was just so anxious that I was going to have another loss. And then I also had to go and have my scans on my own because of, again, like husband couldn't come. Had to wear a mask, which made me just feel so like claustrophobic, and it was horrible. And I came out of the scan and just cried and cried and cried and cried. Everything was fine. But it was just, I think just the whole experience, like the anticipation, the anxiety. My husband was like, are you like, I don't understand why you crying. I cried for 2 hours.
Mm.
And
Just the release, a big
yeah,
release of, yeah.
yeah. And I was like, everything's fine. He's like, why are you crying? But yeah, it was really, really emotional. And yeah, so I don't think it was that time, but she had given me her name throughout this whole journey. And then so when I went to my 20-week scan, I wasn't sure whether it was their same soul. And I'd had this name that I knew I wanted to call our little girl, but when I'd had my 12-week miscarriage, I just thought, like, that's not, I can't call her that name. So I went for my 20-week scan, and they wanted the baby to move a little bit. So I went for a walk up and down the corridor, and I walked to the end of the corridor, and this name was on one of the doors. It was called her name and the room. And I was like, oh my goodness, I just got goosebumps. I was like, oh my goodness, it is you, and this is your name. So I just lay back down, like got onto the bed, lay back down. They did the scan. I was just lying there like, oh, this is just so amazing. So she just, yeah, very clearly said, this is me and this is my name. And so it's been her soul. It had been her soul that had been trying to come in each time, but it just wasn't the right time and wasn't the right energetic for her. So yeah, so the rest of the pregnancy was okay, but yeah, obviously it was COVID times, and it was, yeah, just challenging not seeing anyone and things like that. But I did. So at about 25 weeks, I couldn't make the decision whether to have another home birth or not. Like, I knew in my heart and my soul I wanted to have a home birth, but because of what happened last time, I was so scared, and I was like, am I going to be able to do it? So I was asking her, where do you want to be born? And at 25 weeks, I had a really clear dream, and I woke up, and in my dream, I'd gone into hospital and I'd been in labour, and I got into hospital and labour completely stopped. And this little voice said to me, go home. I want to be born at home. So I was like, oh, okay, we're going to go home. So I woke up from my dream and I was like, oh, you want to be born at home? So that was my decision. And so I then also knew that I really wanted to have a doula, birth keeper. And I'd come across a woman previously, and just knew like my daughter was guiding me to her, and she wants her to hold the space for her birth. So I connected with her, and I think we met up when I was about 28 weeks pregnant. And we had a couple of meetups before the birth. And yeah, so I planned a home birth, and she was going to come no matter what. Like, even though it was COVID, she said, I'm definitely, I will be there. And obviously wasn't sure at the time whether we'd have a midwife there or not, but yeah, anyway, it was all fine with the hospital that I was registered with, that they were still offering home births. So yeah, so again, I went into labour at 1 a.m. My yeah, just like kind of mild cramps started, and I just laid in bed. Yeah, I laid in bed and listened to music. Couldn't go back to sleep, but I just lay there, and I didn't wake my husband up. And then about 7 a.m. I got up to go to the toilet, and whoa, it just all of a sudden just ramped up, like so intense. And I was like saying to my husband, you need to call the doula. Like, this is really, really strong. And he was like, I said, I've been in labour since like 1 a.m. He's like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you wake me up? I was like, I didn't want to bother anyone. And I also didn't want to like bother my doula too soon. But she was like, why have you left it so long to like call me? So I think we called her about 8. And I actually then started getting a bit panicked. I started getting a bit like panicky, like breathing. I just couldn't, sort of felt like I couldn't control it. And so I grabbed like my crystals, started my crystals on me, and they helped. And then my husband spoke to our doula, and she said, right, run her a bath, get her in some water. So he did, and she said, I'm on my way. I'll be there in about an hour, because she's about an hour from us. And I got in the bath, and I said to my husband and my son, like, I really want, like, come in the bathroom with me. I really need you in here. And I got into the bath, and I just remember like, get out. I don't want you in here. And my son was like, I don't understand, Daddy. She's just asked us to come in. Why is she asking us to go out? He said, well, it's just what Mummy needs right now. So yeah, so I was just like chilling in the bath, and then my doula arrived, and she's just so amazing. She just like came and like helped me with my breathing, and just really helped me calm down, and was like plying me with essential oils. And I very randomly said I wanted a satsuma. She was like, really? I said, yeah, I just want a satsuma. I don't know why. She said, okay. So she went to go on, and she's like peeling me the satsuma in the bathroom. And I just remember being really hot and really thirsty, just drinking loads of water. And so I think I was in the bath for about 3 hours. And then she said, okay, I'm going to get you out just because I can feel there's a bit of a, yeah, again, like a bit of a lull, I guess. I just feel like it would be helpful for you to just move around a little bit, not in like a really intense way, but just kind of go into the bedroom, maybe go into all fours if that feels okay. So I did, and then I needed to go to the toilet, and she also said it'd be really good for you to go and sit on the loo. But she had said to my husband, "Oh, this baby probably won't come until this evening." And then it was, I think, about 11:30 a.m. And I suddenly went, I need to push. He's coming out now. So they called the midwife. And she was, I don't know where she was, but she said, oh, hopefully I'll get there in time. So my husband had started filling up the pool. Actually, what I wanted to do was birth downstairs in our really gorgeous like room that overlooks the garden, and they'd set up the pool, my husband's son, and they started filling it. Didn't get in the pool. There wasn't time. So I went into our bedroom, and it was just on all fours. And the paramedics were called because they didn't think they didn't think the midwife was going to be here on time. So once again, I had paramedics come to my birth. And that was, obviously like triggering because I've brought up some things from before. And I also had, apparently there were loads of them here for some reason, but I had one come upstairs, and I almost just felt like I've got this man who I don't even know just staring at my, behind. And then him and my husband were just having a conversation. And my doula was like, do you need them to be quiet? And I said, yes. She said, you need to tell them, like, speak up, stop talking. So I did. I said, can you stop talking? Please. And they did. My husband was actually filming me as well. And then the midwife arrived, I think about 20 minutes before my daughter was born. So then the paramedics obviously left, thank goodness. And fortunately, it was in some ways, unfortunately, it wasn't my midwife that I'd had look after me the whole pregnancy, but it was one that I'd had who had done a couple of my appointments, so I had met her before. And yeah, she came, and I was just, it was so intense. I mean, it was like so different to this kind of calm sort of water birth that I was imagining. It was just, I was loud. It was just wild. And I was just clinging on to my doula, like for dear life. I had so much like power, I guess, and intensity come through me, and fear, because it was just so overwhelming. And I, bless her, I think I nearly squeezed her arm off because I was just holding her so tight every time I had a contraction. But she actually guided the midwife to put a warm compress on my perineum. And that was really, really supportive, actually, because also obviously I'd had a episiotomy before. And so I think that was, it was just kind of helping. And yes, I do. I just remember at one point my doula saying, "Oh, like you'll feel the ring of fire soon." I was like, "I already have. That's already been and gone." She's like, she's like coming out now, and So actually, one thing I just remember is the kind of up down, and I wasn't expecting that at all, because obviously I didn't feel that with my son, and I was like, "Is she ever going to come out?" Like I just feel like she's, making some progress. She's coming down, and then she's just going back up again. Like, is she actually making her way out? And they said, yes, like, I can see her, she's coming out very soon. And I was getting a lot of encouragement, like from the midwife, and my doula. Although interestingly, at one point, I think the midwife tried to guide my breathing, like as in like just pant slowly or push slowly or something. And my doula said, just do what you need to do, because did you notice what happened when you followed her guidance? Things didn't flow. So because she's like right next to my ear, so she's kind of whispering me and talking to me, and my midwife's right behind. So she said, just do what your body is guiding you to do. Okay, don't like try and hold back or slow or whatever. Just go. So that was really helpful. And then she was like, her head came out, and then it was 2 minutes later, and then her body was born. And I just remember being in so much shock, like, there's a baby. I can't believe there's actually a baby. And I picked her up, and she was all like slimy and slippery. I just remember being in so much shock, and then just sat back like on on my heels, and then everyone was just kind of helping me get into a more comfortable position to hold her. And it really cannot have been long at all. I don't know the exact time, but I remember just something falling out of me. And I said to my doula, I think I've done another poo. And she went, oh, it might be your placenta. So she said, "Well, just kind of sit back a little bit." And I did. She was like, "Yeah, it's your placenta." And we'd planned to do a burning ceremony for the cord, but we said to the midwife that we were doing a lotus birth, because we just wanted to wait
Mm.
until they'd gone. So we just, I had a bowl ready for the placenta, so that was all put in, and my doula helped with that. And yeah, we just kind of sat there for a while with just holding the baby and the placenta in the bowl, and just sat on the floor. And I remember asking my mum to tie my hair up and just saying, "Not because I care how I look, I'm just really hot. Can you just move it out of the way?" And yeah, then I think I was made tea and toast, and then yeah, guided up onto the bed. The midwife just wanted to check me, and I did have a little tear where my episiotomy had been.
Very common.
And yeah, and so she said, "Do you want me to stitch it?" And my doula said, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Do I have a choice?" Like, she's like, "Well, of course you do. You don't have to have it stitched if you want to." And I said, "Well, like, how bad is it? And I think she said it was second degree.
Mm.
So I said, "Well, I think maybe I will." I didn't really know. I said, "Okay, I will." And they said, "Okay." And then I think would she have given me a injection to relieve
Yeah,
the
so you
pain?
would, yeah, you would have
Yeah.
been
So I didn't
probably
even feel
lidocaine.
anything.
Yeah, so you get this shot with this
Yeah.
of lidocaine, which numbs just
Oh,
around
the
that
area.
area. And it's interesting because there's some evidence coming out, and especially anecdotally, if you listen to home birth midwives, for sure, but also evidence showing that it depends on the cut, or not, well, cut, I mean tear.
Yeah.
Um, for sure, some second degree tears definitely would benefit from suturing, and some are quite, um, what do you say? They just come back together really
Okay.
solidly. And
More
if
like a
they
clean
do,
wound, I guess you could say,
yeah,
like not too,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, some twos can be, I guess, not just this kind of straight kind of tear, and then maybe you do need, but actually, like in a few days, the vagina heals amazingly back together. It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
meant to heal. You know, when you
Yeah.
bite your tongue and it hurts like hell, and then you have this feeling for a day or so, and then the day after or two, it's gone. Like the tongue
Yeah.
healed. Well, the vagina is even better at healing.
Mm.
At birth, especially, it's just puffy, full of blood, just there to prepare itself to heal in case of tear.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's just magical like that. I'm not saying that second degree tears shouldn't be sutured, but there's leeway, and there's definitely not a right just way fits all with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Third and fourth, definitely needing,
Yeah.
suturing
Yeah.
and help. But ones and twos, especially twos, like they're 50-50, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's good for people to know, just
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
listening.
yeah, yeah, that's helpful. And also, actually, just I sort of missed out a little bit, is that I was bleeding really heavily afterwards. So when I was sat still on the carpet on the floor, um, they were a little bit concerned about my bleeding, but I'd already bought a herbal tincture, and for that reason, not because I was worried, but just just in case it
Yeah.
happened. So my doula gathered that for me after. She said, "Do you want to take this now?" And I did, and yeah, it just stopped. So it was just really magical, and then there was no.
Do you want to share with the
Yeah, yeah.
listeners?
If you're happy with me to share, yeah, it's
Yeah.
shepherd's purse.
Mm,
Yeah.
beautiful.
And she also, yeah, gave me lots of like echinacea, and I had lots of homeopathy on hand too. So I was taking arnica, and I think it was oh, I can't think of how you say it. I can't remember. There was another
Yeah,
one as well
I
that's
know the one you're wanting to say, and I can't remember how to say it either now.
um
Something chrism?
yes, I think.
Yeah, Ellie
Yeah, it's
chrism, something like that.
essentially like a kind of
Mm.
more intense sort of one than arnica. It just, yeah.
So with the shepherd's purse, that
Yeah.
was a tea, yeah? That was
A
just
tincture, had a
a
tincture in
tincture.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay,
Yeah.
and then it stopped. So
Yes.
you just snuggled up in bed with your little family, or what did you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. So my husband held her skin to skin on our bed. And I had something to eat and drink. I can't remember how long after, but I did go and have a shower because I was just covered. um, and yeah, then I just remember pretty much staying in bed for all the rest of the day and the night, and like 2 weeks after that. um, and my doula came back. So she stayed with us for about 3 hours after the birth, just helping us like with feeding. Again, I had difficulty with feeding again with our daughter with the latch, and she, yeah, I won't go too much into our breastfeeding journey, but um, it was that initial kind of latch. But again, I fed her for 2.5 years,
Mm.
so we overcame it, but there were quite a few challenges
Is
along the
it
way.
that it hurts when she attaches, or when the first
Yeah.
minute, or a few minutes, or for the whole feed, or
Um, Initially for the whole time.
for how
Um,
long until that kind of eased up?
yeah, I can't remember. I can't
Yeah.
remember now. It was definitely much sooner than our son, but also
Mm.
both my children have had allergies, so I've had that to contend with too. So we've
Mm.
had lots of like, I guess what you'd say, colicky symptoms.
Mm.
But so we've had lots of like their nappies being
Mm.
really liquidy and things, and then them screaming, and yeah, so both of
Mm.
them. But a very magical thing with my daughter was that I received some guidance to become vegan after I think she was about 2 months old. Um, and when I became vegan, she completely changed. Her whole, like, she was just a settled baby essentially. So I see it as she was guiding me to be vegan. That's not because we tried both of them with bottles.
Mm.
Neither of them would take a bottle. Absolutely not. I'd got all the allergy milks and everything. She would absolutely not take a bottle. So I was like, okay, she is wanting me to breastfeed her. I want to breastfeed her. Like,
Mm.
what's going on? And yeah, I became vegan, and now we're both vegan. Um, and yeah, very, very, very healthy.
Mm.
So yeah, it was this kind of guidance for, it's like an alignment with my soul, I guess, and hers.
Mm.
Um, so yeah. Yeah, I was just
Mm.
thinking if there was anything else like from the birth or postpartum. Oh, only just that we did the burning ceremony for her cord, which was just so beautiful.
Mm.
Which yeah, our doula supported us with.
How long time did it take for you to burn the cord?
Not that long. Um, I don't know, maybe I want to say half an hour, but might,
Yeah.
yeah, about that long. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty long because for people who don't know, they might think, oh, 5 minutes or something. And
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
it's important for people to know that it usually takes about half an hour
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
do a burning
Yeah. It was a
ceremony.
lovely ritual, and like
Mm.
literally as soon as the cord, like the last bit
Mm.
broke, she woke up because she was like asleep on me, and she woke up, and it was just
Mm.
like, wow, it was just, yeah, it was so lovely.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that. So,
You're
if you had a
welcome.
first-time mama in front of you right now who's about to have her first baby, and
Yeah.
she really wants to have a natural and empowering birth experience, what advice and pearls of wisdoms would you give to her?
Um, I really feel like the biggest thing for me is around creating support that you need, which has been such a huge thing for me, like in terms of my motherhood journey, is healing around not feeling like we're worthy of the support, which is so often why we don't create it for ourselves. So, but it's just it having a doula there, having like my husband and kind of expressing all my needs and desires to him, um, just made such a massive difference. So I know that if I'd have had a doula at my first birth, it would have been so different.
Yeah.
So yeah, that absolutely for me is just create, and your support might not look like a doula, but it's just whatever you feel would deeply support you, whether that's friends, your mom, family, a doula, an independent midwife, and even an NHS midwife. Just as long as you're expressing exactly what you need, and yeah, just creating that circle of support for yourself. And in postpartum, I mean, absolutely, especially, I didn't have as much support in my postpartum both times as I would have like to have done.
Mm.
Had I known that how important that was. So yeah, absolutely, postpartum doula and birth doula, I would highly, highly recommend.
Yeah, definitely. It always comes back to this, like over and over again, women sharing how, they wish they had known more about the postpartum and the support in the postpartum and
Yeah,
planning for the postpartum. I
yeah,
keep on also talking about that and
yeah,
reminding people that. And everyone I work with, we put a big focus on postpartum and the plan and the care after, like making sure the network is there, the support is there. If not, how can you prepare like with meals yourself, freezing them, and maybe employing someone like a postpartum doula or a cleaner or
yeah,
or bringing your mom there for a month or your sisters or calling on your people.
yeah.
And I mean, yeah, this is dear to my heart. I have a course called the Nourishing Postpartum course for this reason, because it's just
Mm,
such a
yeah,
forgotten part of the transition from maiden to mother.
yeah, yeah,
Most people
yeah,
will, not most people, the few people that do work towards having a home birth, a natural birth, of them, I would say like 80% do not plan for their postpartum to the
yeah,
extent that, or even at all sometimes, like it's
yeah.
totally forgotten. It's all focused on the birth. So I love that. I love that you brought that up. Thank you. Been a pleasure having you on, sharing your story.
Thank you, Anna. That was lovely. Yeah, I love sharing stories.
Thank you for listening. If you love this podcast, then please consider sharing it, leave a review, or make a contribution on our Patreon page. And if you want to connect on social media, then find the podcast on Instagram as the Natural Birth Podcast. Thank you for listening.